You know, it's one thing to just have a simple task list. For that, you could probably get by with just a sheet of paper and a pen. But it's another thing to really maintain your tasks properly. You know, to maintain due dates, to keep your tasks updated with comments, to have the details in your tasks that you need to complete them, things like attachments, things like task details. And you don't want a system that's so cumbersome to do these things that you spend more time maintaining your tasks than you are actually completing your tasks. Well, with TickTick, I think you'll see they make it super easy to maintain your tasks and maintain them properly. This is the second video of my Complete Guide to TickTick series. In the first video, I covered signing up for an account and adding tasks. In this video, we're going to get into the details of all the task elements, starting with the task name, looking at due dates, looking at priorities, comments, and all the other functionalities that TickTick provides to help you maintain your tasks. Hello, I'm Joshua Best. Alright, so today we're talking about all of the different elements of a task. So to start with, I'm going to create a new task. And probably the first element of a task is the name itself. So I'm going to call this one Task 1, and I'm going to hit Enter, and that's going to show up in my inbox. And over on the right side, you can see all of the details of the task. So you can see the name across the top, Task 1. Right below that is the description. So one of the first elements of a task that we're going to cover is the description. And I think the description is important because this is what really allows you to keep track of what's actually going on with your task, right? I mean, you can have a task name, and sometimes that's meaningful. A lot of times it isn't. But usually we can put some stuff in the description that'll help us remember what actually the task was. So we can either copy and paste a paragraph from an email, or maybe we forwarded an email into TickTick, and then within the description is going to be the email body. Or we can just add text to the description so that we have more details when it comes time to do the task. And so by default, this is actually a text box that you can use to populate any details of the task. So this is the details of the task. And one thing that you might not be aware of is that you can actually use Markdown to format this text. So for example, if I want to make a word italic, I can use the asterisk, or the star, I might say, because asterisk is hard to say. But I can use the stars around the word to make it italic. So I'm going to say this word is star italic and another star. And you can see it kind of formats it already and makes the stars just a little darker. And then once I hit the Enter key, it takes those stars away and the word is just italic. Maybe I could also make a word bold. So this word is, so 2 stars, bold, 2 stars. And if I hit Enter, then the word is bold. But perhaps you don't know Markdown syntax that well. And so it would be very helpful if TickTick kind of gave you a cheat sheet to use to help you format the text within this description. And lucky for you, they did. So if you look down towards the bottom right, there's a letter A that's underlined, and that's a button. And if I highlight that, it says Show Styles Bar. And if I click on it, it brings up a bar across the bottom, which allows you to format the text in different ways. So you can see here I have bold. And if I hover over it, you can see it gives me the syntax that I would use. So it shows me star, star, bold, star, star. And it also gives me the other option, which is Control plus B. I might just try that to see what it looks like. So this is using Control plus B to make a word. Now I'm going to hit Control and B. So it puts up 4 stars and my cursor's in the middle of it. So now I can just type the word bold. And if I hit Enter, it took the stars with it, which is kind of annoying. So I have to go to the end of the line, then hit Enter, and now it makes the word bold. Okay. So what other options do I have down here? Well, I can have headers. Bold we covered. I can highlight. I can make a check item. Let's do this because this might be useful to some people. So let's make a new check item. Check item 1, check item 2. Okay, so that's cool. And let's see, can I check them off? Yep, I can check them off. And when I do, it crosses out the words that were next to it. All right, what else do we got? We have bulleted list. We have numbered list, italic, underline, strike through. Let's see, horizontal line. That might be useful to help separate the description if you have different sections. You can insert a link. You can insert some code. Let's try code for a second. Okay. And the last thing on the list is quote. All right, so if you want to add a quote, you could do that. All right, so just some different ways to help format the description of your task, which is pretty useful in my opinion, because sometimes you might want to get real detailed in your task description in order to keep track of what's going on with the task and so forth. The other thing that's on this styles bar that we didn't cover is over on the very left is a box that says immersive writing. And if I click on that, it basically brings up the description by itself. So if I really want to just take some time to type out the task description, I can use this immersive writing mode to kind of give me a distraction-free writing environment to allow me to type in my task description. And then if I want to exit out of it, I would just click that button again to exit. Okay, so one other thing to cover on the task description is that it doesn't have to be text. So I'm going to highlight all of the text that I just entered and delete it. And I'm just going to click on this icon that's up towards the upper right. And that allows me to change my description from text to a checklist. And so now I can add check items or list items. So I can add item 1, item 2, item 3. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And now let's say that I actually don't want this as a checklist. Maybe I want to switch this back to just text. Well, I could just click that icon again and it changes my checklist back to text only. So one of the next elements of a task that we're going to cover is the due date. And the due date is probably the most important element of a task, maybe besides the name, because it really helps us keep track of what's going on, what's coming due, what do we need to be working on today, if we maintain the due dates. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to click on the due date button. And this pops up a window, and let's start up at the top of the window. So you can see I'm on date, but I also have the option to choose duration. Now this is a premium feature, so if you don't have premium, you likely won't see duration pop up. But let's take a look at what that looks like first. So if I click over on duration, I can say start today, February 22nd, and I want to start at, let's say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's going to end, and you can see on the right side it gives me the duration, so like 1.5 hours, 2 hours, so forth. And on the left side it gives me the actual time, so let's say 5 o'clock. Yeah, it'll take me from 3 to 5 o'clock. Let me select that. The other option is I could say, well, it will take me all day, and the duration will be all day long. So that's one option we have. Let's go back and click on date and see what other options we have. Okay, so to start with, we have some icons across the top. I have today, tomorrow, next week, and next month. So today and tomorrow are pretty self-explanatory. Let's see what next week does. If I click on next week, does that make it a week from now, or does that make it Monday of the next week? So I'm going to click next week. It says 7 days later, so it's going to put it exactly a week from today. Okay, let's instead pick next month and see what it does. And it's a month later from today, so March 22nd, today's February 22nd, so that makes sense. Okay, so that explains those icons across the top: today, tomorrow, next week, and next month. The other option I have is this calendar, so I can pick the specific date that I want. If it's not a week from today or a month from today, I can pick a specific date. So let's say it's Friday, March 4th that it's due. I could pick that date. And I can also pick a time that it's due if I click down here and click the time button. So maybe it's due March 4th at 3 o'clock. And if I press the OK button, now you can see it's due in 10 days, which is March 4th, and it's due at 3 o'clock. All right, and just to cover some of the other options, we can set a reminder for ourselves. So when do we want to be reminded of this task? Do we want to be reminded of it 5 minutes ahead of time? So if it's due at 3 o'clock on March 4th, we would be reminded of it at 2:55 p.m. Maybe if it's a quick and easy task, that's good enough. But maybe it's a task that might take a while. Maybe we need to be reminded of it an hour ahead, or maybe even a day ahead. Or again, we can customize the amount of time we need. Maybe we want to be, maybe we want to be reminded of it, let's say 3 days ahead of time. So when it tells us, it's going to remind us then on March 1st at 3 o'clock to go ahead and do this task. So 3 days ahead, I'm going to press OK. And so that will be useful if you have big tasks, but you're going to want to start on them ahead of time because they're so big, they're going to take maybe multiple days. And so you can use the reminder functionality to remind you multiple days ahead of time that, hey, you should be starting on this task now. I'm just going to go ahead and click the date again and go into this last option, which is the repeat functionality. And so here again, it gives you a list of kind of generic repeats, which might be useful. So if you want this to repeat daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly, those are all there for you to quickly select. Or again, you can customize the repeat. So if I click on custom, you can really get into the details of when you want this to repeat. So the first option is, when do you want it to repeat by? So is it by due date? So if it's due March 4th and I want it to repeat weekly, it's going to repeat every Friday. But let's say it's due March 4th, but I didn't actually complete it until Saturday, March 5th. Let's say I don't want it to repeat until 7 days after I actually completed it. So I want it to complete then every Saturday. Since I completed the task on Saturday, it should repeat 7 days from the completion date. So I could select by completion date then. The other option is to choose specific dates. So I want to choose the exact date that it repeats on. So it's due March 4th and I want to repeat on March 9th, 11th, 17th, and 19th. Now those are some pretty random dates, but TickTick allows me to just specify exactly which dates I want it to repeat on in case you have any recurring tasks that have kind of a more sporadic due date scheme, that kind of have a more sporadic reoccurrence. Well, you can select the specific dates that you need in that case. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go back into the repeat section here, go back into the custom. So we talked about the due date, completion date, or specific dates. We can also select every 1 week, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year. Okay, so those make sense. And if we want it to be every week, do we want it to be every Tuesday and Friday every week? Or if we select every month, do we want it to be every month on the 4th and the 6th? Or maybe we want it to be on the first Friday, maybe on the 4th Saturday. Now, I think this feature is very robust. I personally haven't had a reoccurring task that I have not been able to find a way to make it reoccur when I want it to. Especially since TickTick gives you the functionality to specify the exact dates that you want if none of the recurring themes match your scheme. So very robust functionality in the recurring due date functionality. Next up, we want to talk about the priority of a task. A priority can be meaningful within TickTick because one of the ways to know what's important to work on, aside from the due date, is the priority. So let's say that you don't use due dates very much, but you have tasks that are more important than another. Well, you want to be able to signify that in some manner. And so TickTick gives us the priority flag. And within the priority flag, it gives us 4 different options. It gives us red for high, orange for medium, blue for low, and a gray for no priority. And this is pretty simple functionality. We can select one of the priorities. We can't select more than one, we can only select one. So is this task a high priority, a medium, a low, or does it have no priority? And so I'm just going to select medium. Now you see that the flag color changes to orange, and also my checkbox changes to orange, which I can see here in the task details, but I can also see over here in my inbox that I have a medium priority task. And so that's really all there is to cover for task priority. Pretty simple, but very useful. And it will also be useful when you go to sort your lists. A lot of times we want to sort our lists based on priority. We want the highest priority tasks up at the top and the lowest priority towards the bottom of the list. Simple functionality, but very useful. All right, so what other features do we have to help us maintain our tasks? Well, TickTick gives us the capability to comment on our tasks. And I find this very useful because if I have tasks that take me multiple days, sometimes multiple weeks, it's hard to keep track of what's been going on. And I can use the task description to some extent, and I could say, I could put in a date and say, well, this happened, but TickTick gives me a comment section so that I don't have to clutter my task description with comments, but rather I can keep the task description to just describing the task, and I have a separate section where I can add my comments as the task progresses. So down towards the bottom, next to the styles bar button, is a little comment button. So if you click on that, it opens up a box that says write a comment, and you have 1024 characters to write that comment. This is my first comment. So that took up 25 characters. I'm going to hit enter. And you can see now I have a comments section within my task. And it tells me the number of comments. It also tells me who made the comment. This will be a timestamp, so it says just now, but as time goes on, it'll tell me the time that this comment was made, and then obviously the comment. Now, let's say I made this comment in error. I can hit this trash can over towards the right, and I can delete the comment. So again, this is very useful, and I'm just going to add a second comment so we can see what that will look like. This is the second comment. All right, so now it tells us that we have 2 comments, and we can see that the most recent comment goes towards the bottom. Okay, so let's move on to the More button. So we kind of covered all of the major elements of a task now. We've covered the task name, the task description, the due dates, including reoccurring dates, and we've covered priorities and also adding comments. And those are all the elements that we kind of see right here within the task detail panel itself. But there's another menu, it's called the More menu, that gives us even more functionality to help us maintain our tasks. So in the very lower right corner is 3 dots, and that's the More menu. And if I click on that, it gives me this big long menu, and we'll just start up at the top. So we can add a subtask. This is obviously a very powerful tool, so let's talk about subtasks a little bit. If I click on Add Subtask, it gives me another section within my task that's kind of right in the middle, right between the task description on the top, the comments on the bottom, and the subtasks are now right in the middle. So this, let's call this subtask 1, subtask 2. Okay. Now we also see the subtasks come under task 1 over in the inbox, and they're indented just a little bit. Now what's cool about subtasks within TickTick is that these are tasks within themselves. So if I click on the arrow of, say, subtask 1, it takes me now to the details of subtask 1, and I can add all of those same task elements to subtask 1. I can add due dates, I can add a priority, I can add comments. So this is very powerful, and you can go several levels deep of subtasks because you can add subtasks to your subtasks. So let's just do that for fun real quick. I'm in subtask 1, I clicked on the more menu, and I'm going to add a subtask to the subtask. So let's call this subtask 1. And again, you see it show up here in the task details, and over in the inbox, you see that it's indented underneath subtask 1. Here it is, subtask 1. All right, so subtasks are very powerful. And if you're within a subtask and you want to get back to the main task, you see right here above the subtask name is the main task. And you can actually click on that and it'll take you back to task 1. So here I am back at task 1. Here I can see my subtask 1 also within my subtasks of task 1 because it lives underneath task 1. So that's cool. So the next option is to pin a task. Now, this would probably be more useful if we had more than one task in our inbox. So in order to demonstrate that, let me just create a couple more tasks. That way we can see what the pin functionality actually does. So let me come back here and I'm going to add task 2. Task 3, task 4. Let's say task 3. It's kind of buried in here in the mix, but let's say that this is a very important task for me, and for some reason I don't like to use the priority flag, but I want to make sure that this one is always at the top of my list. I can hit the pin option. It puts a pin section within my inbox, and it has task 3 under that pin section, so it's always at the top. Now, if I want to unpin it, I obviously just go to the More menu and click Unpin. So that's pinning a task. It basically puts the task at the top of the list no matter what. All right, the next option under the More menu, and I'm again on task 3, is the Won't Do. So if for some reason we have this task in our inbox, task 3, but we decided we're actually not going to do it. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe we're being lazy but perhaps I don't need to do task 3 anymore. Maybe I was going to go to the grocery store, but my wife went to the grocery store instead, so I don't need to do that. And I don't really want to check it off because when I check something off and mark it as complete, it means that I did it. And I really didn't do task 3. I really want to mark it as I didn't do it. And so that's what the Won't Do option is. So if I click on Won't Do, it basically puts an X in the checkbox and puts it under a completed and won't do section. Now, let's say that you didn't actually mean to hit the won't do option on task 3, and you actually do need to do that. You can just click back on task 3, even though it's in the completed and won't do section. You can click into the more menu, and now you can see that the won't do is replaced with a reopen. And if I click reopen, and that's basically just going to reopen the task again so that we can now do it. All right, I'm going to click back up on task 1 again. And the next option from the More menu is tags. I'm not going to cover tags in this video. I'm going to save that for the next video of this series, which will be all about organization and how you can organize your tasks, including using tags. So the next option is Upload Attachment. Now this is if you have a file on your computer that you want to actually upload into the task details. So if I click the Upload Attachment button, it's going to pop open the Browse window of my computer, and I can select a file to upload as an attachment. I have one here it's a Word document called Task Attachment. I just select it and hit Open. Now you can see it shows up in my task description. So underneath the text is now a button for task attachment. If I click on it, it asks me to download it, and I don't need to re-download it, so I'm just going to hit the cancel button. But I do have that task attachment there now, so if I'm on a different computer or I delete it from my computer and need to reference it, I can easily click on it there. And one thing I want to point out here is that even after I add an attachment, I can add more description after the attachment or before. So that task attachment just kind of lives within your task description now. Let's go back down to the More menu. The next option is Task Activities. So this is actually pretty cool. I clicked on task activities. Now it's going to show me everything that's happened with this task from the time that it was created until now. So you can see I'm going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom where I created the task was 42 minutes ago. And I added this word as italic. I added some description. It shows me everything that's happened. I've added the due date and the time. I added an attachment. So it keeps track of everything that's gone on. And so this is a pretty cool audit tool. And maybe you accidentally deleted your task description and you need to go back to a previous date and pull up the description. This task activities will actually have that information for you. So you should not lose any information here, and you should know exactly what happened to your task just by looking at this task activities. All right, so the next option from the More menu is Save as Template. Now, I'm actually not going to cover templates today either, so let's save that one for another video later on in this series. The next option is Duplicate. So if we want to duplicate this task, and this task is pretty detailed, right? We've got all kinds of due dates, descriptions, attachments, comments. Let's see what, we've got subtasks in our task. Let's see what duplicate does for task 1. I'm going to hit duplicate. And you can see it duplicates everything except for the comments. So here I have task 1 copied. Underneath it, subtask 1 copied. Underneath that, subtask 1 copied. And subtask 2 copied. And down below that, you can see my original task, the tasks that don't have the copied at the end of their names. So it copied the priority, it copied the due date, it copied the description, it copied the attachment, everything but the comments. So that's pretty powerful functionality too. Okay, so let's say I want to reference task 1 in another task. One way to do that is from the More menu. I can use the copy link. That copies a link to task 1, and let's go to task 4 and let's type in the description. This is a link to task 1. And I'm going to hit Control V to paste. Now you see it shows up kind of a little symbol over here on the right, and then in brackets is the name of the task, which was task 1. And so now within the description of task 4, I have a link to task 1. And so if I'm ever looking at task 4 and I see that there's a link to task 1, I can just click that link. And it won't take me to task 1 directly, but instead it will pop up a window so that I don't have to leave task 4 because that's really what I'm working on. It just has a link to task 1. It'll pop up task 1 with all of the details, including the due date, the priority, the description, attachments, even the comments. So this is pretty cool functionality also, to have a link from one task to another task. So what else is in the More menu? We have Convert to Note, and notes are another thing that I'm not going to cover in this video. There's going to be another section. There's going to be another video that covers notes. So the other options that are left are print. Let's go ahead and hit the print button. So it pops up a print preview of the task. Now task 4 was kind of a simple task. That's not that exciting. Let's go back up to task 1 and see how it looks when we click the print button. Okay, so you can see it has all the details just like it looks on the screen. It has the due date, the priority, the task description. It shows that there's an attachment. Now, obviously, you can't see the attachment from the printed off copy, and it doesn't print off the attachment separately or anything like that. It just kind of tells you that there is an attachment. And it also lists the subtasks and the comments. Okay, so that's pretty cool. The last option from the More menu is the delete option. So if we added this task and we want to just delete it, we didn't mean to add it, we want to delete it, we can hit the delete option. Now let me go to like task 2 and just hit the delete option. It says task 2 is deleted successfully. Now if we want to find task 2, it doesn't show up in that completed and won't do tasks section here. You don't see that here because we deleted it. But if we didn't mean to actually delete it, there is the trash can section over here in the list panel at the bottom. So if I click on trash, and you can see I had a lot of tasks already deleted, but task 2 is up at the top. And so that was our task 2, and if we want to restore it, we can click the Restore button down at the bottom, and that'll take it back to our inbox, and there's our task 2 again. So one other thing I want to cover that's a task element within TickTick is the task progress. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about how we can change the description to be a checklist, and let's just do that again. So I'm on task 3 now to kind of simplify things, and I'm going to change the description to a checklist, and I'm going to make it item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. All right. So now let's say I have these checklists in my task and I start marking them off. Let's say that I completed item 2. So I'm going to check that item off. Now you see this blue line show up at the top, and it makes it about 25% the way across the top. And if I hover my mouse directly over the line, you can see it shows me it's 25%. Now if I check another item off the list, let's say item 3 is off, the line goes to 50%. Okay, so one way to update the task progress is to have a checklist and mark items on your checklist complete, and that will update your task progress. The other way is that you can manually change the task progress. So let's say that this task is 50% complete because I've marked 2 checklist items off, but really I don't feel it's 50% complete. It's really like 10% complete. So I can come down here to 10%, click there, and now it's changed my task progress to 10%. So if you want to track your progress on a task, you can use this task progress bar to help you track that. And you can either do it manually or by using checklist items and checking those items off. All right, so the very last element of a task within TickTick is the checkbox itself. So if we complete a task, let's say that we've completed task number 4, we can check the checkbox and mark it as complete. And we can either do that over here in the inbox or within the list that the task is in, or we can do it up at the top next to the due date. So I'm going to click the checkbox up here in the task details by the due date. And you can see that that task now gets grayed out a little bit and goes under a section marked completed. So just like most other things within TickTick, if you accidentally marked it as completed or you need to unmark it, you can go back into the task, either in the list or within the task details, and uncheck the box. And now the task is marked undone. Thanks for watching this second video of the Complete Guide to TickTick series. We've still got a lot more to cover, but hopefully you've learned a little something about how to maintain your tasks properly within TickTick. We'll see you on the next video. Have a good one.